Welcome to this new video about how to create CRUD applications with Spring Boot 2.2, Java 11 and an H2 database. This tutorial will contain of 3 videos, and the first one is about the basic application setup, where you will learn about which dependencies are required. We will do the JPA entity modeling. We will insert some sample data, and I will show you how you can access this data with the H2 console. For this application, I will use a simple bookstore application, which will have 4 REST endpoints for creating, reading, updating, and deleting the book entities in the backend. After this video, there will be 2 more videos, one about creating and reading the book entities, and the last one is about updating and deleting the entities. And within these 2 last videos, I will also cover how to do efficient testing for these CRUD endpoints. So let's start. First, I will create a fresh new project. I will use IntelliJ, but this is also doable with Eclipse, for example. So create a new Spring Boot project. I will use Java 11. Click on Next. Enter some basic metadata for my project here. Let's call it demo book application. It should be a Maven project. Language is Java, packaging jar, and for the Java version we will pick here 11. The rest is okay. Go to next. First, make sure you're using the latest version of Spring Boot. And now we have to pick our dependencies, which we'll use for this CRUD application. First, and I think one of the most important dependencies is the web dependency, which will us enable to use the embedded Tomcat and create REST applications. The next one is the dependency to the H2 database, which is a simple in-memory Java written database. It's really nice for some prototyping, and with this we don't have to connect to an external database. Next one is JPA, as we want to access the data stored in this relational database. In addition, I will also add Lombok to reduce the boilerplate code of getters and setters. And last but not least, I will add DevTools dependencies, which is really nice for local development, where we'll get hot reloading whenever something changes and gets automatically deployed to the it gets automatically deployed. Click on next. Doesn't matter where to store this application right now. If you're not using IntelliJ, you may go to start.spring.io and create it with the web-based initializer, or if you're using Eclipse, you can install the Spring Tool Suite plugin and you will get a similar wizard like you saw here for IntelliJ. So here, click on Enable Auto Import. Let's have a look at this application first. Here are the dependencies which we picked. You will see here are some dependencies marked red, as I have to download them first. As you can see here on the bottom, IntelliJ is downloading them from Maven Central. Yes, you may recognize the test dependencies, which we did not pick explicitly, but if you create a Spring Boot project, they will always be in place for you. In addition, the Spring Boot Maven plugin, which will also come out of the box. So, in addition to these dependencies, I will add one custom dependency. It's Java Faker. It's a really nice dependency to create sample data. We will use this for populating some books during the bootstrap of our application, and here I will use version 0.6 17.2. So let's start with the modeling of our book, which is our main JPA entity, which we will store in the H2 database. To create this JPA entity, just add a new class to the package. Do a right click and go to New Java class and call it book. Yes, we want to add it to Git. So first of all, if you want to model a JPA entity, you need the entity annotation. So Hibernate, in our example, will recognize this class as an entity and will map it to a database table. Our entity will have a primary key, which is a long. The book will have a title. Furthermore, the book will contain the ISBN, its unique number, and also a author of this book. For real-world application, this wouldn't really make sense. They will have dedicated entities, like one for the author and maybe one for the genre. But for this sample application, it's totally okay to model it all in one entity. So to tell JPA which one is our primary key, we have to use the @id annotation, and we will tell Hibernate we don't want to create this primary key ourselves. You should do it, or in this case, the database will create a sequence and will apply the primary key during the insertion of a new book. So books without a title is really bad. Therefore, we create a non-nullable title. To do this, you can use the @column annotation, which is part of the JPA spec, and specify nullable false in this case. The same is true for the ISBN and the author. For the ISBN, we can also say it has to be unique. There can't be two books with the same ISBN. Getters and setters are missing, therefore we have Lombok on our class path, and we add the @data annotation, and with this we will get the constructors and getters and setters out of the box. So let's continue with the repository for our JPA entity. Therefore, create a new interface and call it book repository. It should be an interface. And as we are using Spring Data, we can extend the JPA repository. JPA repository needs the name, the class of the entity and the type of the primary key. For our example, it's the book and the primary key is long. And with this interface, we extend this predefined JPA repository. We can have a look at it. It's part of Spring Data. And we will get like the most important operations for our data. We will have a find all method. We have delete methods, get one. You will also see there are some more methods. We have paginated access to our data. And within the CRUD repository, you will also see here the account, a delete by, a save, and a find by ID, which is all we need for our sample application. So with this repository, we now have access to our data in the database. Behind the scenes, the JPA repository will use the JPA Entity Manager to access the data. To populate our database with some sample data, I will create a book initializer. Initializer. This book initializer implements the command line runner interface. With this interface, this run method, which you will see right now, gets executed once the application is started. We need to add the add component annotation so the Spring context is aware of this class. As we want to create, let's say, 10 books, we need this book repository, which we can inject easily. Book repository, book repository. And now we will make use of Faker. This class needs to be imported, Faker, and we create a new instance in this method. With this object, we now have access to some sample or randomly generated data. You can see here an address, an avatar, also beer, business data, cat, Chuck Norris, and also book, which we will use in a second. Let's create a simple for loop. Within this loop, we will create a book. And add some data to this book. Set author. We can get a random author from the Faker library. Dot author. Same for the title. And for the ISBN, I'm taking a different approach. I'm using Java's UUID, create a random UUID, and create a string out of it. We don't have to add the ID field of this class, as this is a primary key and will be populated during insertion in the database. In the end, let's save this entity. We will use the repository, which has this convenient save method, and just path our book. That's it. For some debugging purposes, I will add the stateless4j annotation. This annotation we will get a logger, and we can log here that we are starting to sample data, and after our for loop, just print finished data initialization. So that's it. Oops. Let's now try to start our application. Just hit the green run button in IntelliJ on the top right. It will now build the project and start it. Oh, here's a typo. Let's fix this first. Rename. It has to be so. That's right. And you see here our application started, and our log output also indicates that the sample data is inserted. So right now we can't see any data, therefore we can make use of the H2 console, which is a simple web-based SQL UI to access our data. To enable this, go to application.properties and just enter H2 and you get an IntelliSense with all available configuration properties. Here we will need the enabled property and add it to true. With this, we can restart the application, take some time, and then go to our browser, and we'll get a new endpoint on port 8080 with this H2 console. You may ask yourself why we did not specify any SQL scripts yet to populate the data schema with Spring Boot data JPA and Spring Boot in general. We'll get a pre-configuration of our application if we use an embedded database like H2 or Derby, as Spring will set the Hibernate property DDL auto, which specifies how to handle the schema creation of our data. It will be set to create drop, and with create drop, Hibernate will make sure that the data schema for our simple model is applied to the database during Bootstrap, and will also drop the whole schema once the application is shut down. So there's no persistence during several bootstraps, but I think for prototyping this is really nice. So let's go to the browser and go to localhost 8080, go to the H2 console, and you will see this screen right now. Here we have to adjust the JDBC URL like the following. JDBC URL is the following when we use a embedded H2 database in memory. It's mem and then testdb. Username is SA, password is empty, and we can now connect to it, and we'll see here a really nice and simple SQL GUI. You will see our book table here with the columns we defined, and also you'll see here our non-null specifications to author, ISBN, and title. And in addition, you'll see the unique constraint here as we defined it with the add column annotation. You can run some simple SQL. Let's select all books we insert during the bootstrap. You will see here we get 10 books with some random data, which makes sense, which are not that random as we use the Faker library. That's all I want to share with you in the first video. Let's see you in the upcoming videos where we'll create the 4 REST endpoints and will create, read, update, and delete book entities. See you!